This next one kind of just deals with Gaia and our interaction with her. How would we cut stones like granite, sandstone, and etc. by either using sound or vibrations?
Sound is vibration.
I knew you'd say that. How do we do that? Is this, if I may ask a few more questions, is the sound vibrations powerful enough to melt the rock, or does it just push the atoms aside as it goes through?
That is pretty much what melting is. You're not destroying anything, you're just altering the molecules and atoms. The answer to your actual question is that the right frequencies amplified properly, sometimes it's a mix of frequencies, how they blend. There are a number of ways to explain this, but that's the simple answer. Proper frequencies, maybe a blending of frequencies appropriately and in the proper timing, so to speak, will have the effect. Again, if those who are planning on producing an effect figure out, I'm not going to tell you that, but figure out how to put the frequencies together and when and what the cycle should be and the frequencies, the vibrations, and how much cooperation from other entities they should have. They need to state their intention, but first and foremost, recognize, you're referring to various rocks and solid formations, but anything that needs to be done, whether it's within a person's body or on a grand scale to build something, I think that's what you're after. It takes the soul, the true self of each individual involved to recognize the validity, the worthiness, the consciousness of each item they're attempting to change, to alter in some way. But until that recognition of the consciousness of every iota on your planet, including each atom, there won't be any of this marvelous construction that you're referring to. I feel like I need to explain it a little more.
Go ahead.
Well, the simple explanation is that when the earth splits, those who are on the peaceful earth, those who go with the split into a land of peace and harmony and plenty of love, those people will, to one degree or another, be recognizing the consciousness of every thing on that planet, down to the atoms of molecules. And I say to one degree or another because some people will move there because they're just beginning to understand and grasp it. And others know it and will be there helping others to comprehend, to come to understand that. And at that point, maybe nobody will want to cut into rock and build monoliths. Who knows?
The reason for the question,
Mm-hmm.
there are finely cut stones in Central America and other places on the earth that mesh together so well that you can't even get a slip of paper between them, and there's no mortar used. I'm trying to determine how that was really done. That's the purpose for the question. And also it'll give some indication of how the pyramids were built. Perhaps. That was the only reason for the question.
I understand. We understand. They keep correcting me. The answer is something you already know. At least with those rock walls you're talking about.
So you're reading my mind, huh?
No, you are aware that the melding of those tremendous stones with no mortar, and they are so finely fitted that yes, there was sound involved, because that, I say that group of, when we say that group of people, it was a rather large group, not just a handful of people, already recognized the consciousness of sound waves, the consciousness of the rocks, the consciousness of each and every one who was involved. And they figured out how to achieve this. Now, the pyramids are something else. Sound was involved. But so were some, shall we say, assistance. There was some assistance by these so-called gods. And by the way, the pyramids were not built to be tombs per se. They were used as such after a period of your time. But that wasn't their original purpose in being constructed. As your history went on in your linear time, the original purpose was forgotten. And that's when they started using them as tombs. That's why there aren't a whole lot of royal mummies in there, in any of them.
What was the original purpose? Is that something you can elaborate on?
The gods.
Are these gods or extraterrestrials?
Extraterrestrials. At first, they recognized that the indigenous peoples there thought of them as gods, so they behaved that way. But again, they started losing that focus, that consideration of the peoples. Again, over long periods of your linear time. But in the beginning, yes, they helped, they assisted in the building of the pyramids because the people wanted to honor them as their gods, and it served the extraterrestrials' purpose in teaching them, in going into the mathematics of how they were constructed and what they could be used for, and the power generated that could be sent all over the globe and was utilized by many different peoples who also thought these original extraterrestrials were gods, different parts of the world. But like I said, things started to go south quickly. Boy, she's a stickler, isn't she?
Yeah. Nice what I put up with on a daily basis. How old is the Sphinx compared to the pyramids?
Again, with the linear time.
Yeah, were they constructed the same time?
No.
Okay. Which one, literally time-wise, was constructed first?
The Sphinx went first.
Based on linear time, how old is the Sphinx?
About twice as old as the pyramids, maybe more.
Who built the Sphinx?
The Sphinx was constructed by a mix of other extraterrestrials who recognized that the indigenous peoples needed an outlet for what those people understood as who the extraterrestrials were. Not quite gods, but godlike. And the peoples there were fewer of them then, wanted to, like I say, acknowledge the benevolence of those ETs. Extraterrestrials is too hard to say too many times in a sentence. So I will use your shortened version. But was more, and the Sphinx was an homage to these other ETs. But those ETs didn't stick around for thousands of years. They had other places to go, people to meet, things to do. Consequently, the concept of the Sphinx was, the original concept was forgotten by the succeeding generations of those people. Well, that's basically the answer to your question. I suppose it was it being the Sphinx itself, the reason for its being was forgotten, as I said. Yes, I'm going to continue saying I. There's only one physical being here. Sometimes they can get argumentative.
Yeah.
Yes, you. Anyway, where was I? Oh. and even became a source of controversy and antipathy. Is that the right word? Arguments between groups of these peoples, to the point where there was a group of them, right as I think it might have even been the first, no, not the first pharaoh, but as the population grew and the recognition that there were higher beings, and much of the, not just technology, but the mathematics, the astronomy that the original ETs had, the second group of ETs that was thought of as gods.
Okay.
And who assisted in the construction of the pyramids. These lessons in physics and mathematics and astronomy and even geology, though all of that, as time went on, generation after generation, remembered less and less after the so-called gods left. And we're mingling with this, well, I shouldn't say mingling, because by then, this earlier existence of Egyptians, peoples, indigenous peoples in that area, had, yes, there were various factions, shall we say, various groups. And it's difficult to say this in simple terms, but eventually there was enough fear left. Well, not left. Fear had accumulated to the point where there was infighting amongst these, to you, ancient peoples. And there was a group of them destroyed the visage of the Sphinx, feeling they believed that it represented wrong thinking, that it represented shall we say, an age gone past. It represented the so-called the god, like, the assistants, the ETs that were thought of as gods. There were enough of them that believed that they were false gods, and so they didn't want anything there.
You mean they did not want the image that was
present?
face?
Yes, the face that was on the Sphinx originally.
Okay.
Your historians believe that it was the first, or the early pharaohs who were against that visage and had it destroyed. They might have encouraged that sort of thinking and let the people rise up and cause destruction. So in a way, I guess you could say they did. Your historians aren't that far off the truth. But as your archaeologists and other historical experts explore more of the pyramids and the Sphinx, that's going to take a while in your linear way of thinking. But eventually you'll get many, many more precise answers from what is learned from the pyramids and the Sphinx.
What was the original face of the Sphinx?
It was the interpretation of what the peoples saw when they looked at the ETs that were assisting them. And it varied because, as you know, individual humans perceive things differently. So it took some time for an agreement to be reached on how to present that visage. And it still wasn't a perfect expression of the visage, because just like you humans, you all have face, head, hopefully hair sometimes, eyes, nose, mouth, ears, chin most of the time. Each ET, whoever visited with or instructed or had anything to do with those early peoples, their visage actually varied as much as humanity's.
Oh, okay.
And so that's why there were so many. They finally agreed on a small enough group of talented sculptors who were able to plan what they wanted the visage to look like. And then they created it. And about the same time as when those particular ETs bid adieu to those people. So it was even more important to them to have a representation.
So we have at least 50 different ETs descriptions and pictures out there. Which, out there meaning in our world, which one of those, if any, would be the closest to the face on Sphinx?
Aye.
And if there's none, say none.
Well, there are, but if I start to specify, it could be taken the wrong way by yourself, by your viewers. It's more like I'm getting a picture out of her mind of the head of a snake in one of the games that comes up on her iPad. And it's not quite right, but if you take that, mix it with the what do you call the Pleiadians?
Yeah.
And mix the two, you might come close.
So it's a reptilian Palladian.
Sort of. That's one way of describing
it. That's enough.
But even a reptilian one, is the visage that I'm trying to describe is more snake-like even than the reptilian peoples.
Yeah. Did this alien have legs?
Yes.
Okay. We will look for pictures of aliens, and at another time, we will show them to you. Did the same group of ETs that assisted the Egyptians in building their pyramids assist the other pyramid builders on Earth?
the ETs, who were thought of as gods, and assisted the Egyptians with the pyramids. The specific godlike ET that helped with the pyramids, there were two of them. But there were others of their race in various other parts of the world, and they assisted in their own way. So, in a way, you could say that those ETs, yes, assisted all the pyramid builders around the world, but their individual characteristics were brought through those pyramids. So there were slight differences because of who each individual was, who was helping them. One, not sure how you would say this, but in the Asian continent, I guess you could say, didn't stop with pyramid-like structures. And I'm not sure where this is, but there is an ancient it's more than just a building. It's not a building. It's a structure, but it's a conglomerate of structures in, what would you call it?
Cambodia?
Well, that wasn't what I was thinking of, but it's either Cambodia or one of those other countries in that area.
Okay.
Constructed quite the large area of buildings that still stand today. They're not pyramids, but they have a lot of similar characteristics. That's kind of weird.
There is a community, a preserve, if you would, from what I understand, in Cambodia, that is very large and was built a long, long time ago, and no one knows what its purpose was.
Mm-hmm.
Could that be the one you're referring to?
Probably, because this is large. It's beautiful.
Oh, yes.
Intriguing.
Mm-hmm. And intricate at the same time.
And intricate, very. It was another way of paying homage to the godlike entity that taught them so much. And for the most part, they remembered it for much longer than the Egyptians ever did, or any of the other areas ever remembered. What, the mathematics,
right.
the physics, the astronomy involved generations. Just within a few generations, that knowledge would be lost and misunderstood, and the monuments, if you will, became mystical or whatever, and they still are in a lot of places. And so is this one that I'm referring to. And I believe, if I am correct, that it was a female. Yeah, she put her own ideas into this complex of buildings and help them to help the local peoples, the indigenous peoples, to construct it how she wanted it, but utilizing what she had already taught them. And hence the beauty and the longevity, in your way of thinking, of this complex. And its only purpose really was to acknowledge her existence, to thank her for the knowledge she imparted to them, for taking care of them, which she did until she left as well, which actually was, they were all, as a group, told to go back home.
Told by their superiors or
Yeah.
their governments, or
Superiors, you can call them superiors.
okay,
Their people said,
Okay.
no, you guys are not supposed to be doing this. You gotta go home.
oh, too much influence.
Too much, especially since within, like I said, just a few generations, that knowledge would be lost. But I believe the one that we just talked about,
In Cambodia,
or wherever it was, those people retained more of the knowledge for longer than
Okay.
most other people.
okay. So did they migrate, so to speak, or the evolutionary process, or their design, building, whatever, cultural influence, whatever it is, did that progress from mounds into step pyramids and then into pyramids?
Not really. Pyramids were another influence of the later ET influences.
Does that include the step pyramids?
Yes.
So I take it the step pyramids were some of the first ones they attempted to construct.
As compared to the Egyptian pyramids, oh,
Yes.
most definitely, yes.
Hi, Haisha.
It also had a lot to do with, when you think about it, step pyramids are more likely to be found in the more humid climates. Think about it. They didn't have enough stone, solid stone, to build anything smoother. They had to construct those pyramids out of the stones that they had, smaller stones and mud and dirt and even grass to help. Instead of mortar, grass would grow in the cracks and help to hold things together. And so steps were more practical. Step pyramids were more practical because they didn't have the materials to build them more solidly.
Are pyramids in other worlds other than Earth?
Again, it's mathematical. Pyramids are mathematical constructions, not constructs, but the concept
Is a construct.
is a construct, and that would be anywhere and everywhere. Math is universal.
There has been a large cavernous room discovered under the Sphinx using ground penetrating radar.
Very good.
Finally got it out. Is that a storage location for information, or What is it? Your face looks funny.
What?
You just made a face.
I thought I was making a lot of different faces in all our meetings, but anyway.
Well, this one's the funniest one. If you don't want to comment, that's fine too.
It is not to be divulged at this time.
Sounds good to me. Back in session 16, the visitor talked about the non-human power source at Skinwalker Ranch and that it was for non-human ships and equipment. Are there other such power stations around the Earth?
Yes. Now and have been for millennia. Yes.
Okay. I'm not going to ask where, because, well, yeah, where? That'll help.
I think you're pretty much familiar with ones like Sedona. There's one in the Ukraine area, Central Eurasia.
That would
there.
explain a lot, because there's been a lot of reports of UFOs in Ukraine lately.
Well, of course, with the war going on,
Yeah.
that contributes as well. But yes, Turkey. Of course, the pyramids of Egypt, which humans have yet to figure out what they're about, which is fine.